Ah, this uh, uh, this iPhone missed prompt. Oh no, I guess because I tripped the wire. Anyways, nothing I can do about that, I guess. So I'm back for Hebrew lesson 2. Um, and looks a little crooked. It's kind of broke here, and I glued it back together. Didn't want to buy another pair until it was absolutely necessary. I mean, it's like about $20-$30 for these blue light glasses. But anyways, so back in Hebrew 2. Hopefully you enjoyed Hebrew lesson 1. So some good news is I discovered that I actually got more views on my Hebrew 1 video than I have for the last 9 or 10 videos I posted. So seems to be a hit so far. I guess it's a good change. I think from just me talking about the Bible, you actually get to read more of the Bible for yourself and you learn how to read it in the original language. So I hope that it was educational. So I have prepared lesson 2. I will try to make this video a bit shorter than the first one, but this is pretty much the last video that I will be able to make it longer if I want to. What I discovered is that I've been getting some emails from YouTube. They said there's been some changes to the terms of service. So what's going to happen is that they have some changes in terms of the some of the terms to their monetization or advertising or commercialization. So basically now they're saying that they reserve the right to put ads in all videos, even if you aren't part of the promotion partners program. So I think what it is like before, like a lot of people who have you have the option of allowing ads, and then you can get a small remuneration from it, from advertising on your videos when people view your ads. So that's why people did that in the first place. Now I don't know if it doesn't mean that those people don't get paid anymore because YouTube's going to advertise on your video anyways. So you're not going to get paid for advertising. Not that for me it would be a lot of money, because I don't get a lot of views on my videos, and I think even if I was advertising on my videos, you have to get like a certain number of views before they start paying you. So probably like every year I would probably get like something like, I don't know, cents, like maybe 10 cents or 20 cents based on how often people actually view ads through my channel. So it doesn't make a huge difference financially for me, but I didn't want to put ads on my videos because I don't want to discourage people from coming to my channel and because they view ads. But unfortunately, YouTube is changing the policy according to the emails they sent out. So they reserve the right to put ads on any video they want now. So my videos might start having ads, but that's not really my choice. It's just that YouTube is putting that contingency on, and they're gonna start advertising. So I've been waiting till the last minute to do my sermon for the preaching competition. So I got to get on that. I was actually going to record this video yesterday, but the webcam failed, so I decided to postpone. Not that it's absolutely essential that you see my face when I'm talking anyways, and often I just like to talk from the notes, and that's what I'm going to do today as well. So even for that preaching competition, I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to necessarily preach from the screen per se, but I would just have the screen some sort of notes open for myself. I think I'm going to type out the actual message, and then I'm going to so at least I know that I would include what I want to include, and it should be at least maybe 3 pages or so. I heard from my friend Ben that every page takes about a few minutes, maybe 5, to read. So if it's a 15-minute message that they want, then you probably want roughly 3 pages, maybe single spaced, I guess. And that's how I'm going to do it. So at least I know what I'm typing, as I say what I want to say. The first time I did a message, that was 15 minutes. It didn't really go well. I typed up my whole sermon, started reading it. It became longer than 15 minutes, and I had to cut out parts. So I guess what happened was like it became a mess. Like I cut out here and there, and then it ended up like because like I didn't fill in the blanks between the points that I wanted to make, then people started losing track of what I was saying, and then because I'll be like this is point A and then point B, but in the original one, the longer one, there's probably like some more points between point A and point B, but because I chopped those out, then it kind of had a bit of a disconnect, so that didn't go down well. But this time I guess I'll make sure that it's long enough, that what I'm writing would actually fit into the time frame, and then I'll cut out I'll cut down as necessary. But like I said, I'll start off with the mindset that okay, don't do it more than 3 pages, because that's probably going to take up the whole 15 minutes as it is. So kind of stick with starting 3 pages and try roughly work my message around that. Try to stick with 3 pages. But the way I've been doing these other videos, I just go from the notes. Like I have in my mind what I want to say, and I got a timer in front of me while I'm recording, and then I just go that way, and it's been working out okay so far. And I think what helps you not to just read word for word from something that's pre-written is that you can kind of get the idea. It's like, okay, well, like what you want to say, and then like I just say it, and then like because if it makes sense in my mind, then you should whatever words that I'm throwing out there, if it's connecting in my mind, hopefully it connects in yours as well. I mean, obviously you don't have my mind, but I figure like because that's actually kind of like seems like to me a better alternative than what my flop the first time, where I'm just like reading from, it's almost like I'm reading from a book, but I'm like skipping chapters. So then like you kind of like you don't know what happened in chapter 2 and 3. So how did you get to chapter 4? Because I skipped chapter 2 and 3 to save time, right? So that's kind of how I felt about that one. So from then on, I decided not to write such an extensive, like word for word, what I'm gonna say, preparation before doing these videos. So I think it's working okay so far. I mean, obviously you don't have to do that for this contest I'm entering, but I just figure that's something I'll do. Maybe it might help. So I'll go back to doing that style. All right. So as we discussed in the first lesson, there is no is in Hebrew. There's only the lack of the the. So when you don't put the, it becomes is. I don't remember if I covered that. I don't remember if I covered it. I think I might have touched a little bit about that in the first video, but just to review. So you would say like the book good. It means the book is good. But instead, if you just say like the book the good, you mean the good book. And then the that you put in the translation actually comes from the first the. So if you don't have this, you can also say book good, but to mean good book instead of the good book. So it'll just be the same sentence without these the or hays that they call them. So that's how they do that. All right, so the woman is very beautiful. I didn't get around to putting that in the notes, but I guess by the time this video is released, I'll try to make sure I put that up. If not, a few days later, after I'm done with the other video I need to do, I'm sure I'll post that at some point. So don't fret. But again, you should be able to figure it out from using. So this is a reference I'll put here, and I'll put in the description as well of the video. Is that there's a chapter 7, and those are usually the kind of adjective chapter, where they have like good, they have beautiful. So if you remember the word woman from the previous lesson, or actually I think I talk about the word woman down below with some of the vocab that we cover. You can use that as to form a sentence. The woman is beautiful or very beautiful, as I'll say here. So that's what I think that the very beautiful woman is a little bit well, I can double check, maybe hopefully Google will help, because I figure that's a little bit of a compound. I never seen that before. I'm sure like that that's like how we do it in English. We'll just say like very, because they have the word very, So I'm not sure they use it the same way. Like would they say very beautiful? But except they just they put it in their grammar with women, or they just would just they would just say like the woman is beautiful, and they would never use the word very as part of it. But I guess they would. I mean, otherwise, how else would they use their very adjective, if not the same way that we use it, right? So I'm not really sure. But they do have an adjective for very. If you look at chapter 7, if you go to this link, you'll see it. There is an adjective called very. So I'm like, what would you say? I mean, the book very. I mean, I think you would have to say very good or very beautiful or very something with the book. That's kind of. It doesn't make sense that you would use the adjective of very by itself. It's more of a modifying adjective to modify another adjective. So, anyways, so another thing that we talked about in my first video, if you missed it, you can go back to it. Is one of the first things to talk about in chapter 1 is they tell you about the Dagesh. Dagesh Lani in particular will give you a different pronunciation. So I did cover that in the first video, so you can go back and look at that if you haven't seen that one yet. Or another alternative is I really like the graphics in this video, so that's why I decided to include that link. So the way that they set up the animations is pretty cool. So they have someone talking, but instead of just reading notes on the screen, they show you like animations, like they show you your thought, and then after the letter, and so they say like, okay, this means that this letter is pronounced that way. So if you want to learn more about the different ways of pronouncing letters based on that, you can just go about looking at this video, which I'll also include in the description. But like I said in lesson 1, I feel that when you're doing Hebrew or any other language, even English, like eventually you don't really you don't memorize. Okay, this letter has this sound, this letter has that sound. You just kind of look at the word, and then you automatically, you see a K sounds like a K, right? Like it's like you pronounce it as a K or K, right? Depending on the the letter that follows, right? So you just kind of automatically you see the letter and you just pronounce it. Like you don't memorize, because the thing is like. The way that they teach is that, okay, they say like, oh, this letter in Hebrew sounds like this letter in English, but the problem is like, okay, then you're just kind of like, I mean, in a way it's good because you're using more of your brain, which I find helps with vocabulary memorization as well. But on the other hand, it's sort of like you're memorizing like extra stuff in a way, like in a sense, or like something that doesn't really make sense, because like when you're pronouncing like any foreign language, you don't necessarily you don't just say like okay, this word in this language sounds like this in English, right? So like that's not really how you, because like it's not 100%, like the letter sounds sort of like an E, sort of like an A, but it's not like it sounds exactly like the way we use the English A even, right? So even if you memorize that, doesn't mean that you're gonna get the pronunciation like the way is exactly the way it is in Hebrew. So what I'm saying is like, memorizing pronunciation, like how it's pronounced, isn't really how it works. Like I think that you should just eventually, the more natural thing is that you eventually get to a point where like, you see the words in the sentence and you're just like, okay, it's pronounced this way, and you just read it out. You don't memorize, okay, this part and this part's pronounced this way, this part's pronounced that way, and then blah, blah, blah. You just read it. You just know that this word is pronounced like that, or you see that letter and you know what kind of sound it makes, and you just like, and like, I'm kind of there. Like I mean, obviously sometimes I got to remember. Okay, oh wait, but I think I'm getting there. Like myself, I see certain words, especially like I think what really helps is well, I got like these I got the Hebrew vocabulary cards that are made by the publishers of my textbook, and then at the very end of it, like they use some less common words. Supposedly it's put in order of commonality, but at the very end of it, they like some of the ones that they say are less common, they have some okay, not that's too far, but I've seen like there are some names like is there or even like, well, Israel is a name. It's Jacob's name that he got after like wrestling with God. So they have like they got names in there, Yolshif or whatever. So I mean, those are actually I find are like helpful because you know what the name is in English, so you figure okay, the Hebrew must be pronounced. It's not exactly Abraham is not exactly the way we say Abraham, in English, but Abraham, you kind of like you see the word like, and then you like, oh, it's a sound and whatever, aham, and okay, it's probably Abraham or Abraham. So like that way is how I learned how to pronounce like certain things. So that's kind of like the textbook itself. Will also start you with names for chapter 2, and I think in the same way because they want you to learn the pronunciation and they just want you to like, okay, it's pronounced this way. They don't necessarily want you to memorize like like, okay, this letter is pronounced like. I don't think that's the natural way you learn how to pronounce the language. I think the natural way is just like you just know that this word is pronounced this way and you just pronounce it, and eventually you see the same letters in a different word and you kind of remember, okay, that those letters are pronounced that way. You just pronounce it. You don't memorize exactly the like the translation of like, okay, it sounds like this in English and you pronounce it that way. You just say it like because you already know how it's pronounced. I think that especially like if you're like, because Hebrew for the most part, because they put the values very specifically with the dots and all that, and all the different symbols around the letter, which I didn't cover as much in the first video, but just like when you see the little symbols around the letters, actually let's go back to the notes. There's some examples there. Well, okay, maybe when we get to the vocab. So like, you see that symbol. So these 3 dots is pronounced a certain way. If you see a line under it, that's also pronounced a different way. So like basically in Hebrew, when you see those letters, so one thing you can say about Hebrew is that they're very explicit in their pronunciation markings. So your brain will automatically eventually make the connections. I mean, it sounds like a lot of pronunciation markings to memorize, but eventually your brain will be like, okay, this pronunciation marking is this pronunciation. So you pronounce it the way you see it on the screen or whatever, on the book, whatever that you're reading, and that's it's pretty straightforward, I think, because they give you the exact pronunciation. It's actually implicit in the word. I mean, it's a little bit tricky with the double letters, the Dagesh, whatever, like that video will cover as well. But what I'm saying is that they would have all very, very explicitly. They didn't have those values before, but they added them, and when they added them, they did it very explicitly. They're like, this is exactly, this vowel and this consonant and this syllable. They exactly put it how it's pronounced. Like it's just like there's only one right way to pronounce that word. Well, in some cases, if there's another word that ends in the vowel before, then you kind of put it together. Like it's a bit slurred and you pronounce it a certain way. But for the most part, all the words are always pronounced the same way in most sentences. So it's kind of like it's very explicit. There's only one right way of pronouncing it. So unlike English, where like you might have like like there and there, like they're spelled differently but pronounced the same, right? Like THEYRE and THEIR, right? They're spelled differently but pronounced the same. So you don't have any tricks like that in Hebrew. I mean, you might have words with similar pronunciation, but it will never be exactly the same pronunciation. So a different pronunciation will correspond to a different word. Just like a different spelling will correspond to a different word in English, right? So in the same way, like they will have a different spelling. But what I'm saying is like you would never have, or at least I haven't seen so far, any words where it's like the same. Like it might be like very similar pronunciation and spelling, but I've never seen 2 words in Hebrew with the exact same pronunciation. So that's what I'm saying. It's pretty like very explicit and clear cut that way of how to pronounce things and how words are spelled. So let's do a little bit of vocabulary. What I find with vocabulary is that when you in order to cut this video shorter, I'm not going to talk a lot about vocabulary in this one. So I had another video that I did months ago where like there's tricks and secrets to how I memorize vocabulary, and like by the way that they spell it this way, and this word looks like this word, or this word has a similar using the word meme, a letter meme that's from Moses, for water as well. So it's like I will redo that video because the audio didn't work, so I'll redo that video when I have time, and you can look at it at some point, and that will help you to kind of like, that's how I memorize vocabulary. A different way of memorizing vocabulary might work better for you, but obviously I think when you're learning language, you need to learn the vocabulary. It's just part of the learning process. I mean, obviously you could look up stuff in the dictionary, which helps too. And nowadays we got like, there's you got Logos web app, or even Logo software you can download for Academic Basic, that's for free. There's Blue Letter Bible, and all that. So there's lots of different software out there that would allow you to translate word for word. Even if you don't know what the word means yourself, it will allow you to translate digitally. They don't like us to use that in our class. They want us to, because we're not allowed to use those in tests and exams. So we gotta learn it the old school way, where we gotta know what the word means or look it up in a dictionary and in Hebrew alphabetical order. So that's our only choices. So obviously we kind of automatically are just learning a lot of vocabulary as we learn the language. But for you, if you're just like kind of just want to learn how to read the Hebrew, but not necessarily become like as fluent in it as you would to pass the Hebrew course, you may not need to memorize as much vocabulary. But I think it's helpful to memorize a lot of common vocabulary, as well as the ones I'm going to show you. It's similar spelled words, like kind of help you memorize, because once you know one word, then you remember, okay, this word also reminds me of this word, and the meaning is also similar. It means this. So that's kind of how the ones that I suggested, and the ones, okay, I don't remember which word is similar to this word here. Oh, I think it's probably similar to the word prophet, maybe. I'll look it up later. But what I'm saying is, like, for example, here, woman and man. Actually, woman is spelled similar to man. I think that they were saying that, or man is spelled similar to woman. I don't. In some of the older Hebrew. But anyways, in the most common Hebrew that we learn is how you say man, and it's almost the same. I mean, it's missing that middle letter, the yod here. But the thing is, the way to spell woman is or when you see the word woman, with the way that you know it's woman is because it has the feminine ending here, the hey, which is usually added to some endings of feminine nouns, or like it can become a feminized version of a noun, in some cases. So that hey with that little t that goes below the letter before it is normally how you write a feminine ending. So basically, the woman is basically just the feminine form of man. So that's how you can memorize it that way. For me, I don't necessarily memorize it like that anymore. I just see the word, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know this word, it means woman. But I mean, that's sort of like the idea of how I'm suggesting you can memorize some of these vocabularies. Now that I look at it, it's not really that similar. I mean, they're both really three-letter words, and they both start with the tet here, but they're not really spelled as similar as I thought. But what I'm saying is, like, the same idea here. Well, it's better with the next word that you'll see here. But in this word here, the words for strength, wealth, and army is this word, and it's also a three-letter word to become strong that starts with the same letter. That's as much as I can say. It starts with the same letter, but it's also like the verb to become strong. And then the middle letter looks a little bit similar in terms of it's kind of just got like a really thin profile. I mean, or narrow letter. It's a narrow letter. It's not like a flat. It's kind of a narrow letter in the middle. So you can memorize it that way. But for me, like, when I'm reading the Hebrew, like, I don't really. Sometimes certain letters look similar, right? So sometimes I get the words mixed up because this word looks a lot like this word because that letters look similar, but it's actually a different word. But obviously there's always going to be at least one letter or one vowel different. So here they're using the same letters, but the vowels are different, right? So you see the vowels here, and the vowels there, like there's like 3 dots here, and this one has just a dash underneath the second letter. So the vowels are different, and same thing, they're not accenting the first syllable with that less than sign on top of the meme or the first letter here. So Hebrew is read from left to right, as I said in video 1. So but you can see it's a similar word, right? So here the word for king, the word for queen is a different word altogether, as I said here in the brackets. It's similar to the word of to become king, because this one is here Melech, and I think Malah. This is Malah instead, because it's with the different vowel now. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not 100%, but you can. There's also like yeah, I think I put it in the first video already. There's a link to some videos that the guy did about how to pronounce certain words, and he pronounced both of those words there, so you can see by his example. He's got more experience. You can see by his example how the words sound slightly different, but they're using the same letters. So like, you know, the word for king or to become king are similar looking. So if you already know the word for king, which is the earlier chapter, like an earlier word that we learned in earlier chapters, as part of vocabulary, then when you see this word here, this verb, it looks like the word for king. You kind of, it means to become king, instead of, it doesn't mean king, but it becomes, you know, it's a similar meaning. So that you can kind of memorize it that way. So that's the idea that I did for these vocabularies that I am suggesting that you memorize as part of the list here. So here, like, you know, you see like same thing of it's similar to man and woman. Boy, youth, and servant is this word, and then like again, they add the feminine ending with the little T below the previous letter, which doesn't exist here. So that T kind of transfers over, and it's basically the feminine spelling of the same word, almost, except you're missing the vowels are different for the beginning. So the I, the second word of the young woman, is basically it's Nina, or it's, I don't think I pronounced it very well, but you know, it's basically just the feminine form of, you know, so instead of boy or young boy, it means young girl. So basically, like, it's just the feminine version of that previous word. So again, they look very similar except for that last letter, but one is feminine, one is the male version. So if you know that this is boy, then you kind of know that this means girl or young girl. So because it's the feminine version. I don't remember what word I put here. Maybe it's the word sin. I don't know. But there's a word that I thought looked similar to this one. I just haven't found it before I made this video. But I'll try to get to that when I can. So here, for example, the verb to approach or draw near looks like this. And it's the same 2 letters here. They just basically, and the same last letter, they just add another letter in the third letter. Is also the adjective of being near or close from chapter 7. The adjective to become near or close, it looks similar to the verb to be, you know, to draw near. So if once you've memorized this word from the past, or this one comes first in the vocabulary, so you can use Quizlet. It's a very useful guide to help you to kind of learn words, you know, that the authors of our Hebrew textbook are decided are pretty common. So you know, so when you learn in Quizlet, you will learn the word for near, close first in chapter 7, and then you eventually, I don't know, chapter 14 and 15, whatever it is, you learn here to draw near is this word. But again, you know, it's a similar spelling and similar meaning, right? So this word means to draw near, and this word is actually the word for that means it's near or close. So you can see, like, you know, so if you remember this word, and then when you see this word, it's just missing a letter, but oh, you know, it's like that word near, so this word means to draw near, or to approach. So depending on the context, but the drawing near is the easier meaning to memorize, because it's similar to the word near, or the adjective near. Same thing with this word. Once you memorize the word for gate, which is this from chapter 5, then you see here, it's not exactly the same. The middle letter is completely different, but the first letter is the same, and the same thing the third letter, right? So, and again, this is not one of those words where, as I say, because, like, you know, we're not used to looking at Hebrew, that you would think that they look almost exactly the same. So if they put the two of these words in the same chapter, sometimes you might get them mixed up. You might say, like, if you might see this word here, watch, to guard, and you think that, oh, it's gate, because it looks very similar. And the pronunciation is also somewhat similar, but it's a different letter in the middle. So again, the word gate, it's what do you use the gate for, right? You keep things out, right? So that's why I was saying, like, here, to watch, guard, keep, observe, or protect, or gate can be used to protect you from like intruders and somewhere. So the word is a similar meaning, but in similar spelling. So you're like, okay, this word looks like the word gate, but it's spelled differently. This middle letter. So but it means to guard, to keep. So so that's kind of what I feel is like, once you engage more the brain. So once you know this word, and then your memory cells also associated with the other word, because this word looks similar to that word, and you're like, oh yeah, but it's also similar meaning. Instead of gate, it means you're trying to guard or keep, and that's how I like that. That's what I feel helps me memorize vocabulary. This one is also spelled similar, and it also similar meaning. This one means again. This one means or as long as, and as far as. So similar meaning, right? So as I was saying, and also the spelling is also very similar. Same thing with this word here, to judge or to decide. The verb to judge or decide looks similar to the previous word from the previous chapter of judgment, decision, whatever, ordinance. It just doesn't have this first meme here. So as I said, once you know certain vocabulary, and you see another word that's similar, you think, all you need to memorize is that, okay, this word, it's just meaning it's a judge. It's like the word judgment, but it just means but what you're just learning is it's the word for judge, or to judge, or to decide, or to it looks like the word for a judgment or decision, but it's the verb of judging or deciding. Just like the king one that we talked about earlier, right? It looks like the word for king, but it actually means to become king. So you memorize that. Okay, it's this word looks like that word. Is it similar meaning? And in English, is somewhat we have that too, right? Like we might have the word for keep, and then we have the keeping, right? Like one is the ing, the action word, and the other one is could mean like a keep, like those old castles, like those fortresses. That's like a keep, or keeping, right? So in a way, it's like similar. Like the spelling is just like one has the ing at the end of it, but again, the words will have similar meaning. So they kind of do the similar in some words in Hebrew. There's a similar thing going on. And there are some words that I also like. I feel that when you so these words I memorized the pronunciation because the pronunciation actually helped me with the meaning, right? So this word kind of sounds like it's kind of sham or sham in Hebrew. Kind of sounds like the English word for shame, right? So it means name or reputation, but you're like, okay, shame, right? You're bringing shame to your name, it's like you're ruining your reputation, right? So it's like, so because of that word is similar to the pronunciation in English. Oh, there's another word I have there that I didn't put in, but that's part of the other video as well, where it's like the word yom, which means day, or like sounds like Rome is not built in a day. So that's another word, another one of those words where the pronunciation will kind of help you, like, because it sounds like something in English, or hint to something in English of what the meaning is for that word. And then Elohim is like God's. So I don't remember what that is. I guess people say Elohim, and like you might have heard that in a song, whatever, like because they're using the Hebrew word, and it means God. Or maybe this is supposed to be another part of another category that I didn't put in yet. Like the graphics of this one. Oh, you know what? That might be the same video, but the Dagesh. Yeah, I think so. The Q360. Yeah, it's the same video. I just didn't put that in yet. And another, like, so I find that the vocabulary that I most easily memorized is from chapter 5. That I spent a lot of time memorizing it as well. And I don't know, for me, it just became the easiest chapter to memorize. I guess because there are certain hints in these words that like help you memorize it. So, uh, uh, well, not really, but well, I don't know. Or maybe because these words were used a lot in the early chapters of our textbook, that's like because I use these words so much, I see them so often that they just became easier for me to memorize as well. But this particular chapter, chapter 5, I find that it's worthwhile memorizing. Like for everlasting to everlasting. Like that verse in the Bible, or that idiom that's common in the Hebrew, right? It's worthwhile memorizing this word forever. Like from the God reigns forever to forever and forever, right? It will be like you will see it in the Hebrew, like forever. They use that exact same word, or the Spirit of God. This is Spirit word. So a lot of these words, I think you'll pretty much guarantee to see at least one of these words from chapter 5 in any chapter of the Bible. So like basically, I feel that I pointed out this is the bread and butter chapter, or I consider it my bread and butter chapter, is because if you memorize these words, like very often, like at least like when you're looking at a fresh new chapter or fresh page of just all Hebrew, you'll be like, hey, or like you're just trying to like you're trying to memorize or you're trying to translate a verse. Like say in the test, they don't even tell me what the reference is. They just show you the Hebrew, and you gotta know, okay, what is it in English, right? They won't tell you what the reference is. I guess it's too much of a hint, or they don't want you cheating or whatever to look it up in the Bible. I don't know, but in the tests, they would not. They would do it in the workbook. They'll tell you what the reference is in English, or you can check your answers as well. But they would never tell you what the reference is on the Hebrew test. So they'll show you like it'll just all you'll see is a bunch of Hebrew, but like I said, in most cases, you might see one of these words in that verse because they're pretty common. At least you'll know what this word means. So, at least you'll have one word of the 10 words they're translated already, because you know what the meaning is. Because it's like I said, there are common words. It's useful to know it. Obviously, as a Hebrew student in the class, I find that you gotta learn more than just 10 words, right? Because you're gonna see a lot of Hebrew naturally as a Hebrew student. So you gotta know more than just one word, otherwise you're kind of screwed. Or more than just your vocabulary has to be more extensive than just 10 words. But again, like this is like it's a chapter you can go back to. So like once you know those words well, at least like even the other ones you sometimes forget, but at least at least know like those words well. I would say that it gives you a bit of a head start. So the next time that you see Hebrew again, at least you already know off the back what that word means. You don't have to look up that word because you kind of know it by now because you've seen it so often. So I would recommend memorizing at least that chapter personally. I don't know about you, but that's what I say. Obviously, the man-woman chapter is useful too, but you don't really see those. I don't think that you see those words as often as you would those chapter 5 words. Because like the verses in the Old Testament, sometimes they'll talk. It's all narrative, right? They wouldn't say like the man went to the town. They might say David went to the town, right? So, but town, town would be a word that you like that would come up more often, right? So, so like I said, man and woman may not be useful. God, I think, is useful, but like so there are certain words that appear more often. So like I said, in any chapter of Hebrew, you most likely will see at least one of those words. So I recommend that chapter for memorization. So apparently the video got a little longer. I want to stick to training to 30 minutes, but it's almost 40 minutes on this video. And I didn't really plan it out very well. And also I thought that maybe I didn't have enough content yet, to do it like a 30 minutes ish. But I do, so I guess that's good enough. Basically this second video normally would take you up to like chapter 8 ish, which is kind of what we cover before we do our midterm tests, our first midterm test in the first semester. So obviously, like this is like an hour and a half at most of these two videos. If you were in a Hebrew class, you have at least 8 hours of lessons before you got to this point. But again, this is like I said, it's not going to be quite as short as the Hebrew in a nutshell video that guy does. But at the same time, I will go into more depth, but I'm not going to go into the full depth as well. Not as much detail as the Hebrew class will go as well. But at least it gives you some idea of how to do things. in the Hebrew. So to end off, I think there's a verse that I included from the text from the workbook as well. So so this is again just the practice and to kind of show you how it's done. Well, not to be conceited, like, show you how it's done, But what I'm saying is, like, once you know the vocabulary, how you translate is basically, it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, there is some differences between the grammar and the English and Hebrew, but it's not like a world of difference. So you see, like this Deuteronomy 1:1. Normally they kind of ended it a little. I think it's like they ended it here at the word Moses in the workbook, but I decided to include the rest a little bit more to kind of walk through a little bit more how you do the Bible translation. So this is so again, you read Hebrew from right to left, not left to right, as you would in English. So this is the word these. So again, in English, you will also translate it as these. So it'll be like these, and this is the words. So this is a plural ending here. These last two letters. So this just means the word, but it's the words with the plural ending. So these words, that. So this could be translated as that, depending. It's just a pointer. So like that word, like whatever, that spoke. So this the word for spoke apparently is this word here. Is similar to the word for word, which was this word here. So like apparently the word, like, again, it's just like that vocabulary I was telling you about earlier, right? Sometimes it's similar spelling and similar meaning. So words are spoken, right? So in that sense, it's the word spoke looks like the word for word, except it's pronounced differently because it's got the Dagesh and it's got the different vowel and everything. So you wouldn't pronounce it exactly the same. And then this is Mosa or Moses. So these words spoke Moses. So the words which Moses spoke, because you wouldn't translate spoke Moses necessarily in the English, because it's just that's just the way the grammar is different from Hebrew and English. They'll say the verb, or like they might say said God, or instead of God said. But in English we say God said. In Hebrew they say said God. Not always, but in most cases, most sentences, they would say the opposite, the reverse order. All right, so Moses spoke, and then this is like a two, or it's the same word as that, but they added this like it's the same word of what happened to that? Okay, I guess I thought so. These words, yeah, that. So this is the that here. I kind of like got it mixed up the order before. So these words spoke Moses that. So these are the words that Moses spoke. Or these are the words that or which Moses spoke. Yeah, it could be translated as which, depending. Or you can say that Moses spoke. So again, like this word can be translated who, which, or that, depending on the sentence, right? So it's equally valid to put that this translator had put which, use the word which instead of that. Maybe when I was translating it, I would use the word that. Like these are the words that Moses spoke instead of which Moses spoke. But they're both equally valid translations. Like I said, depending on the sentence structure and the context. Like I said, who, which, or that are all equally valid translations for this word here. So these are the words, and this is the word too. So these are the words that we just spoke, and this is all. So to all, or he spoke unto all, as it says in English, to all, and Israel, like to all. So these words spoke Moses that to all Israel is basically the word for word translation, or in the more smooth English translation, these are the words which Moses spoke unto all of Israel, or to Israel. There is another word that they could use for unto, or on, or to, like that has a ion in there, but this is actually equally valid as a word for to as well. But again, it just depends on the offer. But this is actually a valid way of saying, because you're speaking to someone. But normally this word is more used kind of like you're going to somewhere as well. And there's another way of spelling two with the aleph in front of it as well. The aleph with the three dots. This letter here. Unless I copied it wrong and somehow this aleph was ended up over here instead of where the was there, but I don't think so. I think if you look at the original Hebrew, this is correct. But I'll double check that before and correct it if necessary at some point when I publish these notes website. So hopefully these two lessons of giving you some basic ideas of that's how it's done. It's really not. I kind of like it. It's really not a very tough language to learn. I mean, like I said, the only thing that's like tough about it is that you gotta like remember that this word means this word, right? I mean, that's all it is. Like I think like at least 60 to 70% is just knowing what that word means. And then eventually, like the grammar stuff, like obviously there is grammar rules, but like I said, it's just basically like other than the fact that there's no is or whatever stuff like that, it's just like when you see those like you kind of like, okay, well, what would that mean? Like obviously like the grammar that when you convert into English, you would use a completely different grammar anyways. So as long as you put those words in some sort of order from the Hebrew to the English, and you know what the Hebrew grammar, like you have some resemblance of what the Hebrew grammar, like how Hebrew uses the grammar, you just basically, you kind of already have an idea of what it means in the English. So what I'm saying is that you just kind of like you can just kind of piece it together and convert it to an English grammar. So you do obviously need to know your English grammar too, but what I'm saying is that memorizing grammar isn't I don't think it's like super essential. I'm not saying it doesn't help, but what I'm saying is that once you know like the English words and how these like there's only like a certain number of ways you can translate it into an English sentence that makes sense, right? Like you wouldn't put it complete out of order. You wouldn't say Israel spoke to Moses instead of like, because the order is fairly similar from the way English and Hebrew is like in the grammar, right? So what I'm saying is like as long as you get a certain sense of what those words mean, you can put it into a sentence that makes sense in the English. That I don't feel that you really need to memorize a lot of the grammar structure. It's not. I mean, I know like it's like for our tests and stuff, they're pretty explicit. Oh, what kind of verb is this? Is it masculine singular, or second person feminine plural instead? Or they want you to do those things. But like when it comes to translation, I don't really feel that that's like you really need to know that. As long as you know that this word is actually, or this ending is meant to go with that subject, like that person or that object, then I think it's fine. Like I don't think you really need to I personally don't think like that is actually essential to the translation, right? You obviously don't say, oh, it's a feminine singular, by the way. We don't say that in English. We don't say this word is feminine singular, whatever. So but like I said, so it's just like you saw, right? So it's pretty straightforward once you know what the words mean, of how you can put it into a sentence. So you basically, it's more important in my opinion to know meaning of words or vocabulary than it is to know how to like what the grammar stuff is. Because like the thing is like you might know that this is there's no way that this word is like a person or whatever, because it's not a name, or it's not the word for man or whatever. But I mean, like grammar wise, right? Like it's just the word for these, so it's just pointing to something like these what kind of thing, right? So all I'm saying is that anyways, this video is getting long now. To keep it simple, all I'm saying is that you don't really need to memorize grammar, like but what I'm saying is that if you don't know that's the word for these, it's more important, like, because if you don't know that this is the word for words, you're like what, like you're just like, so like what I'm saying is you'll be less lost if you know the vocabulary, right? Like if you know that these words, and then this is the word for spoke, or you might need to look this up in a dictionary that this word means spoke, and then Moses or whatever. So, but what I'm saying is once you know what the words mean, it's pretty easy to put it into like a sentence that makes sense in the English, and that will allow you to translate. So what I'm saying is that it's not 100% like not ultra essential that you know Hebrew grammar, but at least you know the basic Hebrew grammar that will allow you to translate things properly. I think you know, like I said, the Hebrew grammar is pretty implicit and self-explanatory. The only time where it might get more confusing is when you have certain poetic Hebrew, like Psalms and Proverbs. They might use more poetic language, so that might give you like throw you in a loop on how to translate it, right? Because like, did he mean that, or did he mean that, or is that just figurative for that, whatever? So that gets a little more tricky. But in terms of like the basic, like, you know, the other passages of scripture, the other books like Deuteronomy, that's not like a poetic language, you'll be fine as long as you, in my opinion, as long as you are able to know what those words mean. And again, you know, if you're just a beginner or you don't memorize the vocabulary yet, you can just look up each word or using you know, some software like Google or Logos or whatever, like, you know, in the book, and just like, you know, it'll tell you what each word means, and then you'll be like, oh, okay. You'll get a very good sense of what it means in English, even without knowing the words. But it helps to know the words, and then so right away, like I did there, I already know that that sentence means that because I have the knowledge of what the Hebrew means. So I didn't really need to use any software for that. I know how to translate it already. So what I'm saying is, once you know the vocabulary and you get a basic sense of how grammar works in Hebrew, it's pretty straightforward to translate. So obviously they don't give you hard verses or like ultra hard verses as a beginner, and I'm not doing that either. But one thing is that, you know, there's only one verb in that word, spoke, and the rest of it is just, you know, like, okay, spoke, who spoke to who, you know, or what, right? Well, that sentence does not say what he spoke, but it just said, oh yeah, well, he spoke these words, right? So I guess, you know, there is a what, but, you know, so basically, you know, you form the sentence in English the same way you form another sentence, as long as you know what you're talking about, right? Like who we're talking about, like, or what did that person do? He spoke, right? You know, so it's pretty easy, I think, that way to kind of form it. And yeah, so you already got this is like basically these two lessons will give you a very basic understanding of Hebrew, and you pretty much can go from there. I would do maybe at least 1 or 2 more videos anyways, just to get into more vocabulary and more advanced stuff. But other than that, that's basically, I think that these 2 videos are all you need to just get started. If you want more advanced stuff, yeah, at some point later on in the summer, I will be posting, you know, another Hebrew 3 and Hebrew 4 lessons. But other than that, that's basically enough to go on, and it only took you less than 2 hours. So, you know, yay! You know, learn Hebrew in less than 2 hours, not too bad, right? But again, you know, like obviously, you know, if you really want to learn it well, it'll take you more than 2 hours to study and memorize some of the vocabulary and, you know, practice on sentences and stuff like that. Obviously, it takes more than 2 hours to do. You know, you don't do a 4-month course in 2 hours, right? Or even a 2-month course in 2 hours, right? But, you know, so like, you know, why do you need to spend 2 months on that? And at the same time, I was doing it while doing other courses, right? So it was like, that was like a, you know, quite a load. But you know, that kind of help you to get a basic understanding of how this language works. So hopefully that was helpful, and you'll stay tuned for some other videos.